WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide, and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Hey folks, welcome to Flashpoint here on WCNC Plus. I'm Ben Thompson, joined again by Julie Kay. Coming up on this edition of Flashpoint, we're going to start off with an interview with Charlotte City Councilmember Dante Anderson. She's head of the Safety Committee. They meet tomorrow. She's talking about one of their priorities being red light cameras. We've talked about it before. It looks like they're getting closer and closer to acting on that. We'll talk about that. She talks about I-77 toll lanes.
You can't have a council member in here without asking them about I-77.
You can't, and she, to her credit, takes a more nuanced approach than we've heard from some other people. We'll get more into that coming up in just a few minutes.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things. I mean, goodness, we talked for 25 minutes. Data centers,
name it.
Water restrictions.
Yeah, rapid fire, everything and anything.
Yeah, buckle up. And then also, of course, lots going on at the General Assembly in terms of Mecklenburg County's representatives. And so got a quick interview with Representative Majid about his decision to leave the Democratic Party coming up after the break. So lots to get to in this episode.
Yeah, but first, that interview with Dante Anderson. Joining us now here on Flashpoint, Dante Anderson, Charlotte City Council member. Councilmember, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So let's start. I know there's a Public Safety Committee meeting tomorrow, Monday. Red light cameras, a big issue now going on for the better past month or so. Fill us in. Where do we stand with the program? Because I know there's several hurdles that have to be overcome.
Absolutely. So what we'll discuss on Monday is really the process around how we can stand it up here in the city. What we now have is we have data around incidents that have occurred, traffic incidents that have occurred at intersections, right? Signalized intersections. And what we've seen is that there have been about over 60 deaths, fatalities, or serious injuries, and then there have been thousands, over 2,000 injuries at these signalized intersections. And so
briefly, when you say signalized, just for folks at home, explain what that means.
Yes, so that means when you have an actual a light signal, there at the intersection. If it doesn't have a light signal, it's not a signalized intersection. So it's kind of, technical talk.
Sure. And I think some of the numbers I saw, something like 8% of the fatal and serious injury accidents last year happened at what's called disregarded traffic signals. So, so I mean, and 8% might not sound like a lot, but if you're talking about fatalities, that's people's lives.
Absolutely.
How effective do you think these we should say, first of all, for context, these were a thing here 20 years ago, struck down. So this would be a renewal of them here. How effective do you think they really could be?
Well, one life saved is one life saved, right? And it's not only just the life, it's the livelihood of the families and the loved ones of that individual. And so I think it can be effective. But certainly it can offer deterrence, right? So if you know that there's a camera at an intersection, that might deter you from, pushing on the accelerating pedal when it's a yellow signal, right? So it can absolutely save lives and modify behavior. The question is, how do we stand it up? Because there is no municipality in the great state of North Carolina that has the red light signal program currently. There's one that's reviewing it, but there isn't any other city that is actually administering this program.
And part of the big problem is people at home might listen to this and think, well, why wouldn't the tickets pay for themselves? But that's actually not the case because of a General Assembly rule and a court order. A big chunk of this, at least up to this point, about 90% of it had to go to public schools. And people think public schools are great. That sounds wonderful. You're still not paying for the actual program and the equipment.
Right, and that's the biggest piece. So it effectively becomes a cost center for cities who would execute these programs, and then the question of effectiveness always comes up, right? And so, but there has been some movement in the courts around being able to cover the operational cost of this, which would make it a net neutral program for cities and municipalities. And so we're trying to figure out, the committee is trying to navigate how we would do that, whether we would have that burden of cost up front and then pass it on to the CMS school system, or if the CMS school system would carry it and we'd basically invoice them.
And where do we stand as far as, I think 10 intersections is what you all would try to do at first. Where do we stand as far as the timeline for some decisions here and going forward?
So what staff is doing is taking an analysis of where those intersections could be. So if you think about our high injury network, there are various intersections throughout the city. Those 10 intersections could be peppered throughout the entire city footprint. So staff is looking at that.
So no vote scheduled anytime soon?
No vote currently scheduled. We're still in the deliberation phase, but I can foresee that potentially in June, we might have an opportunity to vote it out of committee and then take it to larger council with a recommendation.
Now, something else that's been in the safety committee a lot is the no to street vendors. I'm curious too what the status is of that debate.
So we did actually vote that out of committee 2 months ago, and we had a larger full council deliberation on it. Where we stood with that conversation is the enforcement aspect. There's some consternation around the enforcement aspect, specifically with the misdemeanor aspect of standing it up in policy. And so what staff and I are doing is we're looking at how we can shape an enforcement aspect that doesn't have a misdemeanor addition to it, but will not burden CMPD. And so there are a couple solutions we're looking at now. We're not ready to present that in committee this month, but we will come back to committee in June with some potential solutions.
Also addressing tomorrow in the safety committee, nuisance properties is what they're called. Explain what's changed and what that means.
Yes, and so the General Assembly has defined nuisance properties pretty specifically, and there are properties that are effectively arcades, dance halls, and sexually oriented businesses referred to as SOBs. And you can think of those as gentlemen clubs and things of that nature. So by default, the definition of those businesses are nuisance properties. And so we have the authority through the General Assembly to effectively enforce certain types of behaviors and making sure that things aren't occurring on those properties. But in addition, there is a definition of nuisance properties that also includes the high impact or interference of quality of life, of safety, and health. And so that refers to the possession or the sale of illegal alcohol, the possession or the sale of narcotics and drugs, gambling, and prostitutions. And so we know that throughout the city we have a heat map of certain properties that have high 911 calls that fall under that definition. You can think about certain convenience stores where you see loitering and you see other activities going on. CMPD has a call log to come out and take action. We also know that there are certain motels throughout the city that are known for drug sales, human trafficking, and prostitution. And so the city's going to take a very hard position on making sure that those property owners that are repeat offenders as it relates to nuisance are abated through a process.
Gotcha. Why don't we talk about I-70 toll lanes? Something that a lot of people want to talk about. When I talked to you a few weeks ago, you said that you remained optimistic about trying to find a compromise here among the various parties that are involved in this debate. Do you still feel that way?
I do. I do still feel that way. You know, what we're deliberating on now in council is we have a draft resolution around how to address neighborhood and residents' concerns. Now, I think that's a step in the right direction. It's a very good step in the right direction. However, I believe the resolution is too long. I think we need to make it more concise and make it and write it in plain language where any resident can understand specifically what we are fighting for and how we want to protect their rights and their concerns. And so, Council will go through that process of actually effectively redlining the resolution and deliberating on what's most important to be included in the resolution.
Is that going to be stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes, or can we expect that at a full council meeting soon?
Yep, it's going to be both and. So what we'll do is we typically have small group meetings because we can't meet together at more than 6 council members, and that's an official meeting. So we'll have some small group meetings where we're walking through this with our city attorney, giving her and her office feedback on our thoughts. And then we'll have a larger, broader council discussion actually on May 11th where we'll deliberate it in front of the public. I don't believe that a vote is on the agenda for that date, so we'll have an opportunity to go through a couple of iterations on this.
To the people watching who might say, okay, well, resolution's great, but what are you going to do about it? What would you say? Well,
so there's 2 things. One is the actual process of going through the design. So the process of going through this design is an iterative process, and it's designed to have competition in it with the 3 final groups of people who will be proposing a final design. They're incentivized to come up with the best design. They're also incentivized, and this is through us, through the council, to listen to community feedback. So we fought to have a community engagement center. The Community Engagement Center is open.
Yeah.
The General Assembly listened to us. There have been residents that have gone there and have learned about what's going on. It's actually a really cool area that has a really cool space that has maps that have people who actually know this is what they do for a living, so they can answer you with a level of specificity. We have pushed to have those 4 developers come to the city of Charlotte and listen to community feedback. They will be coming. They have agreed to that. So they're going to come and listen to community directly and take that feedback and put it into the iterative design. And so those are things that we can and we are doing about it, as well as writing the resolution. But I will say, as much conversation that has been going on about this, I-77 is an interstate corridor that is governed by the state of North Carolina and, of course, has federal impact,
Yeah.
right? And so the city council has a certain level of interaction with this, but this is not a City of Charlotte project. It's not a Charlotte Department of Transportation project. This is a North Carolina Department of Transportation project in conjunction with our national government. And so it's interesting because the current presidential administration just stood up a Freedom to Drive initiative nationally and sent communication to all of the secretaries of transportation in every state talking about all Americans' rights to drive and the right for interstate commerce, and what will the secretaries of transportation and the governors do to ensure that there's alignment on that. So that is a huge indication that this is not just a local project that has local impact, but this is a state project that has federal backing with it. And so there has to be engagement with council, but there also has to be engagement with the state, our General Assembly, all of our leadership at the state level, as well as the federal level.
Do you feel like your constituents feel like you have the power to stop this? And do you have that power?
Well, I can tell you that the City of Charlotte and Charlotte City Council does not have the direct power to stop this project. We absolutely do not have that direct power, right? This is a project that lives on the state transportation improvement plan that CARPO administers along with NCDOT. Right? And so this project was passed over 14 years ago. Now we're at the stage of implementation and how it's developed. But that project was approved over 14 years ago, and it was on the STIP, what we call the State Transportation Improvement Plan. I don't want to use too many acronyms.
We appreciate it.
It gets super
we can
nerdy.
we can
right?
nerd out here. That's all right. We can nerd out
Yeah.
here.
And so the STIP is aligned with our metropolitan transportation plan as well. Those are federally mandated plans. They're backed federally. And if they're out of alignment, then there are federal implications for the great state of North Carolina, not simply for one city or one municipality, but for the entire state. And so that's why I believe that you are seeing activity at both at the state and the federal level on this.
Axios reported this week that the state DOT's forecast shows that toll lane traffic will go up some 44%. As you know, it's called induced demand. People have studied this for years, and it's, I mean, it's the biggest argument against this stuff. I mean, the people who not only live in those neighborhoods, McCrory Heights, Wilmore, but for the commuters on I-77, make it make sense. If you go up nearly 50% in traffic, and you lose out on these neighborhoods and people, so what's the upside?
Well, the question really is, where are those folks, how are those folks traversing the city today, right? So there are people who, and I'm one for an example because I'm a native Charlottean, I know how to avoid the highway.
Yeah.
I don't have to get on the highway to navigate through the city because I know the streets and the back roads. So there is that traffic. It may not be on the highway, but there is traffic. So the toll lanes, and I'm not necessarily an advocate for toll lanes, but what I do understand is toll lanes, the whole point of toll lanes are to free up access in the free lanes, right? That's the point. So if you are freeing up access or flow in the free lane, then that means more people are traveling faster. So I'm not a traffic engineer,
Yeah.
you know, that's not my background, but I do understand what toll lanes are meant to do. Also, we can't forget or ignore that we have 157 people moving to the region daily, right?
Yeah.
And so there's also a projection that tens of thousands of cars will be on our roads within a 5-year period. I think it's over 50,000 new cars that are coming to our community. So
Quite the statistic.
Yeah.
yes. And I knew the exact number, but I don't want to quote it, but it's over 50,000 new cars. People moving to our city, 157 people daily. So that means we have an infrastructure challenge. That means our housing stock also will have to take care of that as well, because all these folks need a place to stay. So on Monday, the council also passed our housing trust fund allotment for this round. So the council is focused on bringing on board affordable housing stock, both for rental and for home ownership. So we are focused on that, but cars will come with that.
Yeah.
But there is also, you have to look at these things in parallel paths, right? So the community did pass the sales tax referendum. So we know within 5 years, we will see significant improvement in our bus routes and the timing of our bus routes and our bus stops, microtransit as well. And we also know that the new, our new transportation authority will be activating on rail. And they have plans to do so. So we have to attack this from a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
But the secret is out. Folks know about how great Charlotte is, and people want to come. We have a direct number of those folks who want to come here daily, and we need to be prepared about it. We can't ignore the growth. If we don't plan for it and be smart about it, then we'll see a level of stifleness in our city that will reverse the growth and create flight.
On the note of development, I know Monday night there was also discussion about data centers, not moving forward with the moratorium. I know behind the scenes there's still some discussion about standards for data centers. Where do you stand on that debate, and where does that stand overall?
Yes. So, it's interesting because a conversation around a moratorium for data centers was not on the agenda at all. That was something that a member brought up. So we weren't poised to talk about data centers on Monday. The other piece of it is we've never really had a full, robust conversation as council around data centers. So that's the main thing. We've never deliberated or caucused as a full council around data centers. We need to do that because if you look at the membership of council, you have various understandings of what data centers are and what the impacts are. But here's really the punchline. Data centers are here. They've always been here. And if you use a device, this is a very easy test that anyone can take to understand if they interact with data centers. If you use a device or any application that you need to have internet access for, you are accessing data that does not reside on your device, which means you're tapping data that resides somewhere else in a data center. Very easy to understand, which means data centers have been around forever.
Sure.
The proliferation of data centers is really has a two-pronged driver. One is our personal interaction with data and information has changed. So on these supercomputers that we carry, we love to make caricatures, we love to use AI, we'll use Copilot when we're writing essays, we'll use ChatGPT when we're answering questions while we're sitting at the bar, hanging out with our friends. All of that requires huge interaction with data, and that data sits in a data center somewhere. And so just our normal way of how we conduct our life, we interact with data much more heavily. The other driver is Charlotte, and really the entire country, has become a high technology city, right? The way that we conduct business is really high tech. And you're seeing all of that high-tech interaction that occurs even with the cars that you drive, right? Even with the businesses that we are attracting to come here to Charlotte, they need to tap into data centers and information. So the real question is, what type of data centers do we need here and around Charlotte? And that's where the policy, the deliberation for council will come in, right? The data centers today don't look like the data centers 20 years ago. So most of the data centers that are being stood up today are closed loop systems. They use recycled water. They have a recycled air chilling environment as well. And the technology is much more advanced. So we can, as a council, stand up policy that restricts the types of data centers that we want to have here in the city. But we have to be very honest about the fact that our lives and the way we interact with information, and the fact that we're the second banking capital in the United States, and we have this wonderful center called the Pearl that will be a health tech incubator, not only for the United States, but globally. We have become a tech hub, and so we need to access data. The question is, how do we access it without causing harm to our residences, without causing harm to our young people? So we can restrict no data centers in residential areas, not at all. No data centers close to schools, right? K-12 schools. No data centers in certain areas. We don't want old tech data centers. We want the newest innovation that taps into the best sustainability measures, right? So we can stand that up as a council. We just need time to deliberate and go through that.
Something you say has not happened, and everything you just outlined is nuanced, which sometimes gets lost.
Exactly.
And not only what you do, but what we do as well, in fairness. So sometimes we don't always do nuance very well either.
I
Yes.
pulled up this shot so everyone can see Ben and I sitting in front of our 3 computers each and our 2 phones.
Right,
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
Talking about
Data, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Quickly before you leave, Charlotte's now in an exceptional drought, at least parts of it are. Currently, Charlotte Water has voluntary water restrictions. Charlotte Water falls under Charlotte City government. Do you see any way in the future that we end up going to mandatory water restrictions, something we were in 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be a possibility, right? We just have to be very real about that. The meteorologists were calling for rain for the last couple of days, and we got very little rain. And so it could be a reality that we go into a mandatory usage of water. I hope that we can navigate around that, and I hope that Mother Nature will help us in that regard, but it could be a reality.
You got more water questions?
No.
All right. I got one more question
Yeah.
before you go. We've held you here for so long, but I
That's
want to ask
okay.
about a bill in the General Assembly that would bring more magistrates, more state troopers to Mecklenburg County. I know that that's been a conversation over and over again. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I certainly think that more magistrates and bringing more help here throughout the state will help us, right? We already know that our district attorney needs more assistant district attorneys. The General Assembly has approved 10 more. But even with those 10, the ratio of ADAs to our population, we're still at a shortfall, given the size of our city. So we need more assistant DAs. That's just the reality. The 10 will help. We also know that we need more magistrates as well. So that will help. One of the great things about our new chief of police is that she is a collaborator. And I've spoken to her several times around some opportunities throughout our city where she might not have the staff, but she can tap into the sheriff's department or highway patrol or state troopers to help. And so I think that collaborative measure within our state certainly helps, with our chief of police at the helm and with our district attorney at the helm driving that activity.
All right, Charlotte City Councilmember Dante Anderson. Dante, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, more Flashpoint after this.
Welcome back to Flashpoint. Before we get to the really extensive interview we did with Dante a second there, I want to start with the General Assembly. Lots going on within Mecklenburg County. 2 Mecklenburg County Democrats now saying they are unaffiliated. I spoke with Representative Majid earlier this week, so take a listen to that quick interview.
Just curious, from your perspective, what led up to that decision for you?
Well, it's the actions of the Democratic Party on the state level. You know, I disagreed with the governor, and I voted against a couple of his vetoes. Uh, Basically, you know, as we look in perspective, that's 2. But you got to look at my record over the years. I mean, I'm generally one who cooperates with the party. But when it comes to matters where, like this, you know, and if I do my homework and utilize my logic and I follow the logic to its conclusion, well, I think they should respect that. Okay. I'm a dues paying member. I've contributed tens of thousands of dollars to the Democratic Party. And so you're going to throw the baby out with the wash water. The question is, did I leave the Democratic Party to be unaffiliated? But the real question is, the Democratic Party left me. They censored me. This is something unheard of, unprecedented. They censored me. They spent over $500,000 against me for campaigning, get TV ads, people in people high hourly wages to walk the neighborhoods, um, 14 mailers, unprecedented. You see, with that kind of and that kind of marketing, if I was a raccoon and you kept pounding on me that I'm a, a elephant, then pretty soon I say, you know what, I think I'm an elephant. That's psychological marketing. That's what they did. Now, of course, that I just don't think that that's uh, they led me to the conclusion that that I maybe I need to go unaffiliated. So they left me.
When you look back on those two veto override votes, one, I just like to, I mean, ask again your position on those, if you look back on those at all. And two, are you surprised by how strongly the Democratic Party came out against those votes?
Uh, Personally, yes. We've had people, they held special meetings to come to that conclusion for censorship, not censorship, but what they call, yeah, censorship. And this like I said, it had never been done before. I know this amount of people, and it was some people, who had done that in previous sessions, and they didn't suffer that retribution, yeah, for whatever reason. I don't understand it, but I think it was short sighted.
Looking forward, what does that mean for you? And I know Representative Cunningham is in a similar boat as well right now, being unaffiliated. Have you had any conversations about who you'll caucus with or any upcoming votes?
Well, I'm indecisive right now. Um, I'm evaluating that whole process, taking input from my constituents, people who are wise in this area, and who contribute to my decision. And so that's a working process.
Have both Democrats and Republicans reached out about future caucusing?
No, not directly, but some, various people in the community statewide who were Republicans, had some advice for me.
Well, I mean, I
Yes.
know, sorry, go ahead.
Uh, you know, it was an article that came out in one of our local newspaper said we were sore losers. No, I'm a winner, and loser by no means. I made a bold decision based on, of um, what I understand is the right way to vote, and all my constituents, the people that I talk to in my district, but if they understand it, you know what they say, I would have voted the same way. I would have voted the same way. So, I pretty much know the people in my area, and they are not people outside of my area, but these groups that have large funding, and they can do marketing that change the ways people think. They can use marketing as a tool to put emotional fear in people, and that's what they did. So, like I said again, I'm proud to say that I stood up for the values of my community, and we'll very again very proud to of our decisions.
Moving forward, there's six more veto overrides on the calendar. Is that going to be your strategy moving forward, just voting on the issues as opposed to party lines?
As always, issues come up, and I will have to take them on a first come first served basis. I will evaluate them like I've evaluated before, and if they line up with my research and my conclusions, then I'll support them. If not, it'd be as I will not support them.
Is there anything that I know there's been multiple articles about this, anything that you think people are missing as a part of this conversation and as a part of reporting on you leaving the party?
Well, based on what the party did to me, they led me to another conclusion. I share something that I've shared with others that last year, unaffiliated was number one as far as votes are concerned. Number two was Democrat, and number three was Republicans. This year, unaffiliated is number one, number two is Republicans, and number three is Democrats. So the question is, where did those people go? That's the question. And if the Democrats want to get a majority of people back again so they can take over some of these legislative situations, what are they going to do to get that? They can't do the same thing and expect the same outcome. they have to change. And that's why people are doing what they're doing, because, and that's why Democratic parties are losing in that area, and those numbers reflect it.
Is there anything I haven't asked about that you want people to know?
That I'm going to still make decisions regardless of this situation, like I made them before, with a thorough evaluation, input from my community, and having values that support specifically parents' rights.
So that was Representative Majid talking about his decision to lead the Democratic Party, why he felt specifically targeted by the party during the primary.
Yep.
Of course, both he and Representative Cunningham lost their primaries, and so they will not be continuing on after this term. But those veto overrides really became the flashpoint, dare I say, for both of their campaigns. And we've got 6 more veto overrides on the House agenda, some of them quite controversial. So this could be interesting to watch what happens from now.
Wonder if there'll be any sort of inter-party reflection of, hey, was this handled the right way?
Right.
Did we push them away? Or maybe we did and we're okay with that, but probably nothing that will be ever in the public view for us to see. Let's talk about what we learned in this episode. I'll go with Councilmember Dante Anderson. And I think we learned that the I-77 toll lanes are not any closer to a resolution that the parties find acceptable. I think it's interesting, though, because we've talked to most council members about that on this show, and I got to give credit to the council members who talk about finding compromise.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, in the end, it appears that's what it's going to take. And I think any ideas that there's not going to be compromise are disingenuous.
There's no magic solution that's going to make every single person happy, not just in the areas impacted, but that's what I found most interesting, was talking about the federal impacts, the state impacts. This is such a massive undertaking. There's so much money involved, not just the money directly involved in making the project, but where the money goes after, federal funding after. I mean, it's got its hands in so many buckets that there's no way to please everyone.
And all those people are still moving here, and all those cars are still coming. So you have to do something about it. And anybody who says you don't, it's not being, I think, completely honest.
Much to some people's dismay.
Exactly, totally. And listen, I get it. But all right, that's going to have to do it for this edition of Flashpoint here on WCNC Plus. We hope to see you back here next week.